Hello, Gavin Hoey here with the Technique of the Month from Digital Photo Magazine. Now this month I'm going all moody, monochrome and gritty and grainy because we're going to make a grainy monochrome image using Photoshop elements. Now the basic technique is really straightforward to do. So once we've done that, we're then going to add in a very classy big border around the edge. Okay, let's get cracking. First thing we need to do is to make the grainy effect, the texture on the image. And to do that, we're going to use layers. So come up to Window and choose Layers if you can't see them already. So I can now see my layers and I can see I've got one single layer called Background. Now the grain is going to go on its own separate layer. So we're going to make a blank layer by clicking the New Layer icon, and we have an empty layer right there. But we can't leave it empty, we've got to have something in there, and we're going to fill that layer with black. So up to Edit, whoops, there we go, up to Edit, down to Fill, and from Fill Layer we can choose the contents not as the foreground colour, but black instead, and we'll click OK. Right, so we have a very black image, and it's onto that black that we're going to put the grain, and we get the grain from a filter. So Filter, Texture, and there's actually a filter called Grain, which is kind of lucky. Now there's a few things you need to set on this filter to get some really good looking grain. First of all, you can change the intensity, and you've got to put that all the way up to maximum. Then change the contrast, and you do that all the way down to minimum. Now you can choose the type of grain, and believe it or not, there are various different types of grain giving you various different effects, some more apparent than others. Oh yeah, that kind of looks fun. The one I want to choose, and the one I'd recommend you use, is Enlarged. That gives a very nice grainy effect. Now it does give you coloured grain, but we're going to sort that out in just a minute. So we'll click OK. Now you may or you may not be able to see the grain on there. It's kind of small. I really want this grain to be obvious. I really want to make it even more enlarged than it is now. So let's do that by going up to Image, Transform, and Free Transform. Now we could just grab these corner handles and then enlarge our grain, but I'm going to come to the options bar here and I'm going to type in 200% for the width and the height. So it's much bigger than it was before, and we'll click the tick. So that's given us some enlarged grain over the top. But what we can't see now is the image below. I mean, it's still there, obviously, but we've got to get some way of blending the grainy layer with the original picture on the background. And to do that, we're going to use blend modes. Now, the blend mode is currently set to normal, which means you can't see through the grain. But if I choose something different, for example, screen, you can suddenly see through. The only trouble is, if you use the screen blend mode, you end up with white spotty grain, and I want something a little nicer than that, so I'm actually going to use Difference. Difference will give you darker grain, which is a little bit different look to the way you sometimes see these, and I really like that look. Let's go in nice and close and see how we're doing. Now, I can see two problems here. The first one is the rather obvious one, that our picture seems to have got some sort of nasty rash. It's all gone purple and spotty. But secondly, our grain is a little bit hard in edges. It's kind of just, it's not soft. So we're going to soften it down a wee bit by applying a second filter. So Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Now, too much Gaussian blur and your grain will disappear. Too little and it'll look exactly the way it did before. I find between 1 to 2 pixel radius is absolutely ideal, so let's go 1.5. There we go. So that's just going to soften the whole grainy effect down. Right, okay, so we're coming along, but it's not very monochrome, and I did promise you a moody monochrome image. Well, let's make a moody monochrome image. Inside of Photoshop Elements, there are a dozen ways to make your image monochrome. If you really want to get into monochrome, have a look at Enhance, Convert to Black and White. That's a great way of doing it. But today we're going to look for something just a little bit more general, a little bit more easy to produce. And I'm going to use a adjustment layer. So Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and Gradient Map, because it's my favorite quick and easy way of turning any image black and white. Now we'll click OK, and we can choose the type of gradient map we're going to use. Now that's the foreground to background one, which as you can see on our foreground and background here, is, well, not really working for me. The one you want to choose is black and white, because that will make your picture black and white. But it also increases the contrast as well. So you can see instantly, as soon as I applied that adjustment layer, it gives that boost in contrast and gives a beautiful monochrome effect. Again, if I go in nice and close here, you can see that working. You can see our grain working as well. All very nice indeed. Right, so that's the basic technique finished. You can stop there, print it out, it'll look wonderful. But if you would want to take it just a little step further, I'm going to show you a nice simple border technique. Okay, first thing we need to do to make our border is to make sure we're working on the right layer. Because at the moment the active layer is the adjustment layer, but we need to be working on the background layer. So let's click that to make it active. Next thing we need to do is to sort out what colour we're going to make our borders. Now I'm going to make a double border. It's going to have a thin white line around the picture, followed by a big thick black border around that. So I need to have white as my background colour, because that's going to make the thin white line around the edge. So I'm going to hit D on the keyboard to reset my colours, so I now have white as my background colour. Okay, let's come up to Image and resize and canvas size, and well, we've got some big scary numbers there, haven't we? So I'm going to take away the big scary numbers by ticking the word relative, and then I'm going to change the units to pixels, and I'm going to add 20 pixels to both the top and the bottom, like so. So the width and the height both get increased by 20 pixels. Now, if I didn't have relative ticked, I could just add the numbers in, but, you know, maths isn't my strong point, so that does the maths for me. There we go, one little 20 pixel wide border, so 10 at the top, 10 at the bottom, 10 on the left, 10 on the right. Now we want to add the thick black border. So I'm going to swap my background colour for the black this time, and we're going to repeat the same steps. So Image, Resize, Canvas Size. Now once again I've got relative ticked, so I don't have to worry about the maths, but very importantly I must choose pixels, otherwise I'm going to end up with a huge border, and I'm going to put a huge number in of pixels. 800 pixels in both the width and the height, so 400 on each side, and we'll click OK. Right, let's fit that back onto the screen. There we go. So there we are, you can see the whole picture now completed. We have our very classy black and white border, our very nice grainy image, and this lovely monochrome effect as well.